Nervous lunar liftoff anticipation of his crewmate and friend, Alan Bean.
I told him that he really shouldn't worry about it, because if it didn't light, then we became the first permanent monument to the U.S. space program, planted on the moon, and left it at that.
You have a single engine to perform that task. The valves are redundant, the fuel is there, and you can get it to the engine several different ways. Nevertheless, that engine had to work.
And you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number one on the runway.
The Eagle's liftoff went flawlessly, putting it into a low orbit, allowing the ascent stage to catch up with the higher Columbia. Armstrong and Aldrin then climbed to a 60-mile altitude for the rendezvous docking with Collins. A short time later, the reunited crew slipped back behind the moon. There, out of radio contact with Houston, the all-important trans-Earth injection slingshot Apollo 11 homeward, back to Earth.
The moon is impressive, it's stark, and it's awesome in its austerity, but it's not pretty. Earth, on the other hand, is a ball of colors. When you look out in the background of space, and stars are spots of white light. It was a jewel of blue and brown and white.
System and telepathic personal music.
Through its thin, protective atmosphere at a speed of more than 25,000 miles per hour. Floating down to the water with their billowing parachutes, the Voyagers of Apollo 11.
I was one of 10 other Americans to walk on the moon in the 2.5 years following Apollo 11's historic flight. The last 3 crews were able to travel up to 5 miles from the spacecraft using rovers like this one. But by 1972, public support for traveling to the moon had cooled, and all other planned lunar missions were canceled as America asked, what next? When we return, we'll address the question that has haunted the American space program since the days of Apollo.
The second leading cause of death in teenagers is a disease called depression. I know about it. My son was hard to handle. Kept saying he wished he were dead. I thought he was going through a stage. Last year, he killed himself. I guess you could say he died of sadness.
For 24-hour help, call the helpline at 800-323-4HELP.
A lot of people think I work for so many ball clubs because I had a bad temper or something. Actually, once you get to know me, I'm really a pussycat. If you don't believe that, wait till you hear this. Dreyer's Grand Light is as good as regular ice cream, even though it's lower in calories and 93% fat-free. Plus, it's all natural. And it tastes great. Take it from Mr. Nice Guy.
Goggles.
Goggles.
Hip boots.
Hip boots.
Slicker.
Slicker.
Gloves.
Gloves.
Hat.
Hat.
It's that time again. Sizzler's all-you-can-eat barbecue beef ribs. Rib after big juicy rib. For a price you can't beef about. Prepare to eat.
Prepare to eat.
Direct from the Soviet Union, the Bolshoi Ballet Academy, returning to the United States for the first time in almost 20 years. Their history is legendary, their youth and vitality inspiring, featuring international competition gold medalists Galina Stepanenko and Vladimir Malakhov, with special guest stars from the Bolshoi Ballet.
The Bolshoi Ballet Academy at the Pantages Theater. 7 performances only, August 1st through August 6th. Charge tickets today.
We continue with more of Man in Space, the Time television special.
We have a liftoff.
We brought back a bunch of rocks, gathered some scientific data, and then we quit. And it was all over.
Apollo didn't give us a lasting sense of why we were in space. It was too much too fast. And after that, we kind of fell in a black hole.
To go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Less than 10 years after a president's dream put 2 Americans on the moon, the vision and the dream were gone. Gone, too, was the money. The Apollo 17 crew left the last human footprints in the lunar dust. And NASA began looking for a goal it could afford.
The space program started as a political competition with the Soviet Union, having very little to do with the merits of being in space. And we found that that kind of motivation doesn't carry the program very far.
Ironically, the Soviets never did attempt a lunar landing. They chose instead to focus on other goals.
We tended to concentrate on long flights and on testing the capacity of the human organism to withstand lengthy flights in space, knowing that such lengthy flights would have to be made in the future.
In 1971, the Soviet Union launched their first space station. This one, called Mir, is their seventh. Like the Soviets, America launched its first space station in the early 1970s. Skylab was more elaborate than any of the 7 Soviet stations. It was also short-lived.
If it were up there now, it would be the biggest and the best. And for a few bucks, back in those days, we could have made it a reusable space station. We didn't do that, and it was lost.
All of NASA's money was being poured into developing the space shuttle. It became all the agency could afford. NASA envisioned the shuttle as only a part of a larger space transportation system. The plan included a space station, a permanent moon base, and the development of rockets that would carry astronauts to Mars by the early 1980s. The space shuttle was the only part of the plan to be approved.
The shuttle was a flawed, maybe a terribly flawed policy decision. The shuttle itself as a piece of hardware is something that one country should develop at some point. But the notion that it could be all things to all people, that it could be the single means of U.S. access to space, is a decision that will have consequences, I think, through the rest of this century.
Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
When we lost the Challenger, along with the astronauts and school teacher Krista McCullough, we lost our access to space. For more than 2 years, we depended on other countries to launch our satellites and commercial payloads into orbit. After the accident, another task force report on our goals in space included once again a space station and a manned mission to Mars.
I said, I've heard that someplace before. It seems to me I heard that in 1964. So to me, we're 20, 25 years behind where we could be. We could have been to Mars in 1983. That's 6 years ago.
Tonight, I am directing NASA to develop a permanently manned space station and to do it within a decade.
In 1984, NASA finally got support for a second part of the space transportation system. This is animation of the space station Freedom. Many space experts say it is a critical step in expanding human presence in the solar system.
The station is indeed a logical step. It's a logical step in the outward movement of humanity off the surface of this planet. The place we go to space, not just to visit, but to stay.
We don't have this as a national project just to see if we can stay alive up there and return safely. But basic research can be done up there. That's what's of value to every single American watching this program.
But even before its construction has started, the space station is in trouble. Congress is considering a $400 million cut to Freedom's $2 billion budget. According to NASA, that would delay its scheduled completion until late 1997.
Because of budgetary problems, we're talking about abandoning the space station, which is really almost insanity from my point of view. While the Japanese are already planning their own space station, the Europeans are also planning their space station. They're both cooperating with us on our own, but in case we drop the ball, they'll just go ahead with their own space station. And we'll be the only one, the only country in the world that doesn't have a space station.
Some space scientists contend that sending humans into space is an unnecessary expense, that we can be accomplishing more with robotic missions.
The manned missions are exceedingly expensive, but yet the yield from that is very small. so that I think the emphasis is quite wrong. The space station, which is a very expensive and very woolly-headed enterprise, has a definitely prejudicial effect on the really useful things that we can do in space.
The Soviet Union, however, has made a commitment to a manned presence in space.
Right now, miles above the Earth on a manned space station, experiments are being conducted that could cure major diseases, and new scientific data that could literally change the course of history are being collected every minute. Shouldn't we be there too?
This year, the Soviets have logged over 8,000 man-hours in their space station. Their cosmonauts are training for longer and longer missions. Their next destination, Mars.
Ну, во-первых, это ближайшая к нам планета.
Mars is the closest planet to us, and really the only one upon which there could be some traces of human life. And this is a subject which is of enormous interest, of course, to us.
Исходя из нашей всей жизни,
human beings manage to get used to almost everything. We're very adaptable, and I think that we're going to be able to adapt even to situations that first seem impossible, including a space flight to Mars.
Although the future of our own space program is unclear, some within NASA are already working on missions that go far beyond Apollo.
NASA has been given the charge to explore the options for sending humans to Mars, and to the moon, for that matter. And various parts of NASA are studying different components of the problem. What would be required? Mobility, spacesuits, spacecraft, life support technologies. The way a mission might evolve is you would launch from Earth orbit and coast to Mars, literally. You'd start off with a rocket kick that heads you toward Mars and then coast there. And it takes about six to 9 months to get there. You land on Mars, and you would have to stay there for time scales of a year to 2 years, because Mars and Earth just don't line up that often.
Our first steps beyond the moon will not be easy ones. Our unmanned Viking probe visited only a small area of the Martian surface, but what it found may make human occupation difficult.
You have to be cautious about dust storms and about the toxic properties of the soil if indeed it does turn out to be toxic, and you'd have to watch for solar flares.
Just the natural vistas on Mars, I think, would be tremendous. The canyons on Mars are immense. Some of the larger canyons are almost as long as the U.S. is wide, and very, very deep. The sky is pink a good bit of the time, maybe not too surprisingly. A lot of the dust content would make it that way.
In spite of all the difficulties, scientists from many nations are anxious to send people to Mars because of the clues it may hold about life in the universe.
If we find that conditions on Mars were conducive to the evolution of life and yet it didn't happen, that would say that maybe life isn't that common in the universe. On the other hand, if it turns out the conditions on Mars were not that conducive to the development of life and yet it arose anyway, that would say that life is very prevalent in the universe.
When you go explore another planet, try to understand its biological history, and you're faced with the lesson maybe of life having gone extinct on another planet, it's certainly going to reflect back in our understanding of our own planet.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon.
Ultimately, it will take presidential leadership and congressional commitment to guide our space program out of Earth orbit. Today, 20 years after we landed 2 Americans on the moon, NASA often seems an agency without a vision.
It's the future of the world. It's the future of young people. And yet we're robbing young people for our own lack of vision and our own lack of courage to set long-term goals and go for them. And for me, that's a real pity.
Without a vision, the Bible is very clear. Where there is no vision, the people perish. NASA, I believe, is a mission-oriented agency in search of a mission.
Most car accidents happen in a showroom. People buy the wrong car. They want a car as quick as it sounds, as roomy as it sounds.
You know, you've got to be a little lucky to win an award. But when a team wins 5 awards in one season, that's not luck anymore.
That's Mitsubishi. This 1989 Galant just won a top award a lot of other car makers wanted. Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year. And 4 other Mitsubishi models won major awards this year. A perfect 5 for 5, including Import Car of the Year. It's a lot easier to pick with this kind of support.
See your Southern California Mitsubishi Motors dealer. You could save up to $1,000. Set your watch a season ahead to Bullock pre-season sale. The time to save is now at our biggest sale of the year. One time, one chance to save a season ahead on Antoine Gould, Sahari, Andrew Mark, and more. The fit is here. Color is back for him, for her, for you. It's Bullock pre-season sale. Don't be late.
Choosing where you go for your home loan can be as important as choosing your home. Maybe that's why more home buyers are turning to Columbia Savings than ever before. In fact, right here in Southern California, loans made by Columbia have already totaled over $5 billion. Columbia, one of the best managed savings and loans in America. I know who I'm going to call.
The reality is devastating.
The loss is what is tragic about divorce.
The numbers are depressing.
Over 50% of the children in sole custody arrangements had not seen their father in over a year.
And our children are suffering.
Children feel rejected and they feel abandoned, and it affects their self-image.
Making shared custody work.
The key to helping children succeed after divorce is a close relationship with both parents.
Ann Martin reports Monday at 5.
The quest to put a man on the moon, born from international rivalry and fed on the dynamic president's directive, culminated with 2 Americans walking on the lunar surface. The journey of Apollo 11 left us with more questions than answers. Scientific questions about our solar system, and also questions about ourselves. You know, in modern times, people often ask, if we can put a man on the moon, why can't we do any number of simpler things? The true lesson of Apollo is that almost any objective can be met with the necessary commitment. The human will can carry us a long way towards whatever goals we choose. I'm Alan Shepard for Time Magazine.
Accommodations arranged through Hilton Hotels, offering double points to Hilton Honors members using the American Express card at participating hotels. Only at Hilton. Man in Space, the 20th anniversary of the landing on the moon. A Time television special has been brought to you by Apple Computer. Make your ideas fly with Apple Desktop Media. And by Raisinette, sun-ripened raisins in Nestle milk chocolate. Catch some rays, catch some Raisinette.
This has been a GGP television special presentation.